All right, welcome. Hello. All right, find your seats quick. Welcome to the first lecture of the spring 2025 and of a busy semester, as I showed you the Monday and Tuesday during the kickoffs. And we're super excited and happy to have and host Felipe Mesa here today with us in FIU here in Miami. And I'm just gonna quickly and briefly say a few words about Felipe and Plan B Arquitectos, and then I'll let him do the presentation. Felipe is the founder and principal of Plan B Architects, a design practice based in Medellin, Colombia. During the last 20 years, they have built over 50 buildings with different programs and scales: public spaces, sports and educational buildings, hotels, offices, houses, and art installations. Plan B's work has been selected and exhibited in various venues like the Colombian Architecture Biennial, the Ibero-American Architectural Biennial, Chicago Architectural Biennial, Biennial of the Americas, Pamplona Latin American Architecture Biennial, and has been published and disseminated in recognized and specialized magazines and digital websites like A+U, Architectural Review, Lotus, Domus, Habitare, Arquitectura Viva, ArcDaily, Architizer, Design Boom. Felipe is also an associate professor in the design school in the architecture program at Arizona State University. And before the appointment in Arizona, he was assistant professor in different programs in universities in Colombia, like the Universidad Pontificia Bolivariana in Medellin, the Pontificia Universidad Javeriana, in Bogota, Universidad de los Andes in Bogota, and he was also the Smith Eminent visiting professor at the University of Florida School of Architecture in Gainesville. Felipe understands the architectural project as a provisional pact, a permeable configuration, and a positive expression of the eco-social constraints surrounding us. His projects and research topics related to the practice and teaching of architecture has been published in 4 books by Mesaestandar Editors, one that is called Acuerdos Parciales, Awaiting Architecture, Permeability, Architecture in Reverse. One that was published by AR+D Publishing, which is called 12 Projects in 120 Constraints, and one book by ORO Editions, Design Build Studios in Latin America, that was published in 2023. So please, let's give a round of applause to welcome Felipe Mesa.
No? Yeah. Thank you, everyone. It is great to be here today. Thank you, Henry, for the invitation, for having me here. I love the city of Miami. I've been here, I don't know, a different number of times, but it's the first time I participate in an academic event. So thank you for attending this lecture. I know it's not always easy. You have a lot of things to do, work, studio, etc. So thank you. So I'm representing the work of a team. As always, all these practices normally are teams, smaller teams, medium-sized teams, etc. In our case, in Colombia, we can have small group of architects working. We are not specialized. I have my brother Federico, who is in that side of the photograph. And then we have a really diverse group of young architects. So we are not specialized. You know that here in the US, for example, you have super big companies specialized on the design of hospitals or the design of office buildings or things like that. In my context, in Latin America, even in Europe, you can have small practices, not specialized practices. So normally we have public competitions, we have public spaces, we design houses, but we also design small format public buildings, schools, etc. So today I'm going to explain you our position our background as architects. I will mention briefly 3 of our books, the ideas in those books, and then I will show you how those ideas are expressed in 7 projects if we have enough time, okay? So the context is really, I suppose you know it. So this is Colombia, the north of South America. This is Panama and the canal here. Venezuela, Brazil, Ecuador, Peru, etc. So we have the Caribbean coast here in the north of Colombia, where, for example, the city of Cartagena is located here. And then we have the Pacific Ocean here. So today we are going to see projects located in Medellin, in different areas here near the Caribbean coast. But I will show you also one project located here in Brazil, here exactly in this little tip facing the Atlantic Ocean and the African continent. And something that is absolutely relevant for us and our context is being inside and in the middle of this tropical belt. So for us, that is completely radical. Why? Because we don't have seasons. We don't have snow, because we don't have those cultural connections with seasons, okay? So what we have, and normally we think that tropical weathers or ecosystems are hot weathers or super humid weathers. That is partially true, but what defines really the tropical ecosystems is the persistence of the same conditions always. So, for example, this is Colombia again, and this is the Andean mountain range. In Colombia, it divides in 3 fingers. So this is the east finger, the central one, and the west finger. Then this is, again, the Caribbean area, the Pacific Ocean. So this red spot is Bogota, the capital of Colombia, in the center of the country. This one is Medellin, and this is Cartagena. So those constant conditions are strongly defined by the altitude above sea level or the height above sea level, okay? So if you live in Cartagena here, this is really close to the sea, it is always summertime, always, okay? Hot, humid, 2 rainy seasons, etc. If you live in Medellin, 1 mile high, it's always a springtime, always, with little variations, okay? If you live in Bogota, it is always a cold weather, winter, but really, really soft, mild. No snow, but it's gray, cloudy, rainy, okay? A little cold. And that changes completely, not only the architecture, even the materials, the strategies, but also I think that defines, there's like a huge controversy about that, but I think it is truth because I live it all days in my country. The context, the ecosystems are connected with the local cultures, okay? We can have a conversation about that because it's a complex issue, but I think it is true. So just as an example, this is Cartagena, the Caribbean coast, at the level of the sea, summertime, always. These are the mountains around Medellin. So this is my city, springtime, 1 mile high, a lot of vegetation, tropical vegetation, this kind of a light. And then this is Bogota. Bogota is located on top of a huge plateau, but really, really high. It's almost 1.5 miles high. It's, as I mentioned before, gray, rainy, etc. This is Bogota. So we published, during the last 20 years, we have published, I will say 7, 8 books. Some of them are books published with other architects. But we have published in Plan B, let's say, at least 5 books. I'm going to mention 3. And I'm only going to mention the main idea behind the book. So this is the first one we published in 2005. When I published it, I was 30 years old. Okay, so this is a book only published in Spanish. And the idea behind is super basic. It's not complex at all. But that super simple idea is the main background we have in our office, okay? And it's just the title of the book, Partial Agreements or Acuerdos Parciales in Spanish. And it's just proposing this idea or supporting this idea because it is not our idea. It's more a tradition, okay, in architecture that understands that the architectural project is a partial agreement. It's something that you have to build with all the people, the ecosystem, materials, situations involved in a specific condition. So what we are saying is, hey, the architectural project is not a configuration that we imposed. It's not about our preferences or about our creative freedom, okay? It is more about maybe a creative commitment with the specific problems you have in that specific moment. The ideas in that book are moving around that. The second book, it was published in 2014, and we had a second publication in 2023. We reprinted it, and we corrected some of the text. We improved it a little bit. But it was just like a continuation of that previous idea of the partial agreements. So yes, the project, the architectural project, is a partial configuration, an agreement, but specifically when that project is located in the inside the tropical belt or maybe in Colombia, the main quality is permeability in different scales. Why? Because you don't have seasons. You don't have seasons, you don't have snow. Depending on where you are, Bogota, Medellin, Cartagena, with these different heights, you need different strategies. But for example, in Medellin, we don't have this tradition of having AC systems. We don't need it, we don't use it. Only hotels for tourists have those systems. But the rest of the city, we don't need it, we don't use it. So in this book, we try to explain this idea of permeability in different scales as a quality. So from the urban condition, with examples, how our city is permeable in some areas, and when a city is permeable and you can walk and you can cross it, it's different when you have a lot of fences and it is closed. You have different problems or situations, but also the environmental permeability, in buildings specifically, cross-ventilation, balconies, terraces, all those kind of spaces, but also materials, how materials can be permeable or porous, allowing, for example, humidity or the water crossing, etc. But finally, social permeability. So for the anthropologists, it's super relevant, and they define some of the groups that they study in terms of how permeable and connected to other communities they are. And they connect this idea of permeability with success and surviving in a long period. So we propose different point of view to understand that concept. So absorbency and different scales. You see the images with different scales. So penetrability, flexibility at the scale of this is, for example, a greenhouse, a tropical greenhouse in the mountains of Colombia. So flexibility, availability, exchange, circularity, and convergence. Different scales trying to explain the same phenomena. Finally, this third book is 12 projects in 120 constraints, and the main idea here is like another step, okay? So yes, partial agreement, yes, in the tropic, a permeable agreement, but also in our context, in our socio-political context, Latin America, etc., with the history we have and the technologies we have, the limited innovation we have, etc. We also wanted to accept and to understand constraints, but not as we normally do it, right? Because constraints, normally we understand them as something that is limiting our capacities or creativity or ways to react to our problems. So we propose to understand these limitations, these constraints as positive expression of the problems you have. So in a way, the architectural project is an expression also of those constraints, and maybe our responsibility is to accept them and transform them in creative problems or creative challenges. So we have three different types of constraints. We have intrinsic constraints, for example, as gravity, as light, even our bodies. They will be always there, okay? We have the imposed constraints that are, for example, budgets, cultural preferences, urban regulations, etc., etc. And then we have self-imposed constraints. Architects normally, they love this group of constraints because it's the space, I suppose, they have to propose their preferences or what they want to propose. In our case, those self-imposed constraints normally are really, really soft. It's maybe the election of a color, maybe something really, really subtle, but we are more interested in what is happening here, the imposed ones. So in this case, we analyze the work of other artists, architects, anthropologists working with this idea of constraints. And we have like different chapters analyzing the situation, 7 crutches, we have 5 obstructions, we have 3 questions, we have 3 methods, 1 concept, 1 direction, 1 vow of chastity, etc. So now I'm going to try to explain. Sometimes it's difficult to do it in a super obvious or direct way, but how those ideas are defining or living in these projects. So the first project, and I will start from the sea, and I will go up, and I will finish like on top of the mountains, right? So you can really understand the projects, and you can see the change of colors, the change of materials. Sometimes it's subtle, sometimes you can really see it, even the configurations, etc. So this is a hotel in João Pessoa, in that city that is located in the east side of Brazil, facing Africa. It is a super beautiful city along this huge beach, super organized, super clean. It's an amazing place. It is like a small city for Brazil, but it's 4 million inhabitants, right? So it's not small. There is like a street they have really interesting urban strategies. So this public street works as a pedestrian street all days from 5 a.m. to 12 p.m. for people to, walking. It is a touristic city, but it works like that. Bicycles, people running, people walking, a lot of festivals, food, etc. So from the beginning we said, what is the challenge in a hotel? Not only in terms of sustainability, in terms, there's a lot of different challenges, but okay, what in our view is, how can we design a building that is private, basically private for only a selected group of people, but how can this building propose something, a little something for the city, okay? So what we try to do is to have like a huge space covered with pergolas and hanging gardens connected to this public street so people can go. This is semi-public. They control it. and they control who can be there and who can't. But for example, they have concerts, music events, and it is like a connection, okay, with the city. So you can see the situation. The urban fabric is like a regular, really interesting. You can walk around all the city. And this is our block. There is like an empty space on the back. And then in the front, facing the beach and the sea, we proposed like having these two arms with a central void. And then the lobby and the real access of the building is here. And you have to go down. So this is the typical plan. This is like the semi-public space, so you can go inside, you can take this stair, or you can take the elevator to go down only one floor, and then from that point, you really access to the lobby and the restaurant, etc. All the elevators and circulations are here. And then what we have is like a symmetrical building with all the bedrooms with these diagonals, allowing people to see a fragment of the sea, okay? So it is a configuration with this semi-public big space, and then little units with this idea of having this diagonal allowing people to enjoy the view. Then this space is transforming into a big metal pergola with hanging gardens, and in the fourth floor, you can take a bridge on top of those pergolas, and you can go to these terraces to go to the swimming pool or the restaurant and enjoying the view. Yeah. So this is like a section. You can see how it's connected with the street. This is the stair you go down here. This is the lobby, etc. The cross section. And then this is the building. Really, really non-expensive materials. Concrete exposed, plaster, just a color, wooden beams, the pergola with the double, triple height, events happening inside that space, the connection also of that level, with the sea and with what is happening outside, the elevator, etc., the restaurant, the typical unit, the bridge, connected with the sea, with the tropical plants, etc. So what was the challenge there? What is the constraint? A lot of urban regulations, the main constraint is cultural preferences of the clients. It's difficult to, and we don't have this position where you as architect, you have to educate your clients. It's what I think it's completely the opposite. We don't educate clients, we work with them, okay? We create agreements, we don't impose. So that struggle, that's where when you really have to define the project. Okay, this is a middle school, a rural middle school in a place called San Juan de Urabá. It is located near the Caribbean coast. If the previous project was 2-3 meters high above sea level, this one is 10 meters high. It's not as close to the sea, but it's really, really flat. It's like a savanna. Super hot, but a little dry. So, the commission, so the client was Antioquia is the area where Medellin is the capital. So it's like not the state, but the region. So the client was the public institution building schools, okay? The Secretary of Education. And they had a lot of constraints in terms of budget, in terms of materials, in terms of structure. So for example, the quality of the soil was really, really bad. So they said, concrete structure, only one floor, only one story. The roofs, super, super light, steel, really light. And basically, that's it, and make it modular. We have a partner who is like a company building concrete blocks really near this area. So we are going to use all the materials they have and the colors they have. So they have brown, yellow, orange, that's it, 30, 30, 30, and that's it. And we are used to those situations. So we start designing, and they had like a soccer field, and one of the main limitation or the constraint they propose is, hey, you have to keep the soccer field exactly where it is. Okay, so try to build everything around, keeping this super big space open. So we start working with this idea of having like modules. This is the access, the office, a new little soccer field. Then you go down, you take a ramp here, you go down. This is the social area with the restaurant, the cafeteria, and then you have classrooms, labs, etc. You have like a corridor inside, and then all the buildings facing different directions inside the lot. But super basic. Metal roofs, a steel structure for the roof, a concrete exposed structure for all the main buildings, then concrete blocks, and this is how it looks. And then everything was about cross ventilation because it's super hot. And as I mentioned before, no AC systems. We are not used to that, but normally they don't have resources. Not only to pay the bill for the energy, but mainly for the maintenance in the future. It's not possible. So this is how it looks. This is the corridor. And this is one of the classrooms. So you can see the porosity here in the roof, but also the walls, the concrete floor, etc. Okay, then this is 120 meters high above sea level, also in that area, but a little bit more to the north. So this is less dry, this is more humid, and this is a little lot in the middle of a jungle almost, and this is the Mendihuaca River that it's going down towards the sea, the Caribbean Sea that will be here. So this is a Canadian client and a Colombian woman. They decided to have like a second house in Colombia for spending a couple of months a year in this little house. So what they mentioned is, hey, we already bought this piece of land. Somebody already did like a earthwork, creating like this long little plateau, like terrace. We don't want to touch the trees, of course. We want to have like a long house occupying that already flat area. And we want to use, if possible, something resistant. We want to, of course, we want to follow the codes, and we want something that can be resistant and modern, but we also, if possible, we can use some of the local materials. So we start thinking about this long house parallel to the river. Immediately we identify this idea of having like a super thin house, because you can have cross ventilation along the whole bar really easy because it's super thin. So if you locate the house in the east-west direction and you can have really perforations in this direction, it can work really good. So this is the location of the house, this is the access, the parking area, etc. And then we have like a horizontal concrete base. And on top of that, we have 3 different roofs, wooden roofs with palm tree leaves on top, the traditional palm tree leaves that they use in that area. So you can see the section. We found this flat area already there. We only put the house on top of that, following the long extension. This is like the mountain with a lot of tropical plants, etc. So this is concrete, columns and walls, and then these voids, these open spaces, covered with this light structure. And we proposed also these terraces connected with the river. So you can see here the house. You park your car here. On top of this, there is like a solar panel system generating enough energy for some of the, I would say, the kitchen and the social area. It's not a lot, but it's something. And then you have like this long corridor and these little spaces for hammocks facing the mountain. But you also have like all these, it's like a breadth, right? So you have a little room here, then you have the kitchen, the social space, then more rooms, a little gym, and the main bedroom. All of them facing the river, okay? Sections. And the construction was completely conventional, I will say. So we have this concrete flat slab with concrete columns, and then all the certified wood that we had to move from Medellin, right? Because all the wood here, if you want to use all this wood, is always an endangered species. We have a red book in Colombia, and we have almost 80% of the trees are in danger. So this is the typical construction system. We have all the connection with these concrete beams, and then these concrete block walls, etc. But then this is how it looks. So a lot of permeability, cross ventilation, shaded areas. Something that can also be resistant, avoiding maintenance in the future is super important for these places. Concrete floors. This is the kitchen, this is the social area, the main bedroom, the terrace. You can see the river here. And that's how it looks. Okay, then going up a little bit more, 1 mile high, it's Medellin located. Medellin is a long city located in a valley that moves from south to north. It's like a really narrow valley and long valley. So I'm going to show you this orchidiarium, and I will show you next this project, which is like a sport facility, okay? Both of them were competitions, public competitions, okay, that we won. This one in 2006 and this one 2009, okay? So the Medellin government or municipality, they decided to renovate all the botanical garden. All this public space was new. The entrance was new, this research building, the restaurant, etc. This is the public university in Medellin, one of the public universities, the Universidad de Antioquia. Yes, this is the planetarium, public spaces, the metro. We have a metro system that it's also on top of the city. It's not a subway. And this is one of the stations connected with the university and with these public areas. So they had like a typical steel structure, like an industrial facility for exposing orchid flowers in Medellin, because it is a tropical and a springtime weather city. We have the main festivity or fair is in August, and it's La Feria de las Flores, is the Feria of the Flowers or something like that. So we have like a traditional people designing, we call it silletas, which is like something they put on their backs, and with flowers they draw beautiful landscapes, and then we have like a parade with them crossing all the city. But we have a competition of orchid flowers, which is the main flower in Colombia. You know that Colombia and Brazil are hot spots in biodiversity. So, yeah. So the program of this building, it's basically to expose orchid flowers and tropical gardens for those specific moments, but then it is also used. You know, all the botanical gardens are doing it now. They have buildings or facilities that they rent for concerts, weddings, different kind of events to produce a little bit of money for maintenance. So this is also for that. So it's not only about gardens, it is also about these flexible programs. So when we visited the place, we saw, of course, the empty space surrounded by trees. The scale of the trees, it was like 14 meters, the trunks only, and then the foliage. So we loved that scale, so we immediately said, no, we should continue with trees. Or maybe with flowers, but with the scale of the trees. And it's like nothing happened, right? It's like, okay, the trees are there. And then you start working with the program and thinking about the geometry in plan. We also saw some honeycombs in the area, and we start working with hexagons in plan, exploring, okay, we can have like patterns of 7 hexagons, and the central will be the patios. We can have like hollow trunks where I don't know, we can have rain inside those trunks and real trees or plants growing inside. And then if we have the columns there. So at the end, we proposed like a pattern. We didn't propose like a building with a facade, but no, we focused on one of these patterns with 7 hexagons, 1 hollow trunk, a steel structure with overhangs, and then all the structural forces are in the center, in those hollow trunks, but also the organic forces, because all the gardens also are located there. And then we are collecting the water, and we have all the electrical systems also there in those columns. So everything, all these forces are connected there. And then you repeat the module, and you can have a lot of different configurations. So one of the ideas was to avoid touching the existing trees, or one of the limitations, the constraints. So this was a configuration with 15 modules, but finally we only built 10. And that's what it's really interesting about this system, because it is basically the same. You can make it stronger if you repeat the pattern. Exploring possibilities, we also started thinking that, hey, it would be nice to have these patterns like vortex, like explaining that something that all the forces, the organic but the tectonic forces, are condensed in those areas. So we started thinking about that, like, hey, how can we build we did a lot of physical models, and then we started working with the plan. We proposed 3 office buildings, lower buildings, this one with the bathrooms, classrooms, restaurant, offices, and then these concavities as access and a lake. So you have this concavity, this one, you can access from different areas of the botanical garden, etc. We also studied the scale, a certified wood, local wood, pine, patula pine wood, from certified crops near Medellin, steel structure to build it really, really fast. Nothing is bolted. Everything is welded. Why? Because it's cheaper, because it's easier for our local builders, etc. And this is how it looks today, okay, 2024. So how the plants have been growing, how the people is using the building. So tourists, people doing exercising, yoga, concerts, music festivals, weddings, etc. It's super open, super permeable. The vortex this is what I was trying to explain, but it's basically with straight lines. It's a hyperbolic paraboloid. I'm not sure if I said it correctly, but with straight lines you can build a curve. Okay, so it's a simple way of building a curve using a basic material. This is the other project I was mentioning before. So 4 sport facilities. In this case, it was a public competition for 4 different buildings, but really, really close. So from the beginning, we said, okay, this is not going to work for 4 different buildings. It has to be only one thing, maybe one super big roof covering something super basic. Allowing urban permeability, creating pergolas, and cover public spaces, something that happens in Medellin. Maybe Miami is the same because this is subtropical, right? So, and humid, and sometimes it's hot. In Medellin, if you have a public space that is not covered by pergolas or something like that, nobody is using it during the day, right? They use it during the night, but not really for the day. So we said, okay, we can connect those 4 buildings. This one was an existing building, and one of the constraints was, hey, you have to keep the concrete stands. Okay, you have to keep them in that position. So basically what we did is, okay, let's keep them there and let's cover them with these stripes. So basically what we proposed, and this was a competition in 2009, we had 2 months for the proposal. We won. We had 6 months to develop the whole project, and then they built it in 1 year to opening in 2010 for the South American Games. Okay, so it was a marathon, okay? So we said, okay, we need a system. We need a system of a structural system. We need to build like trusses that we can build in 4 different spaces at the same time and then move them to the place. So what we did was to propose stripes in this east-west direction. You can see it because the soccer fields always have these areas in the north-south, because otherwise it doesn't work. So we have parallel stripes that you can extend in the east and west direction, so you can control the sun, the afternoon, and the sun during the whole day, basically. But then you can open these north and south facades because the main air currents in Medellin are flowing in that direction. So we have like a perpendicular diagram, I suppose. So extending them, repeating them in the north and south direction, and then changing the altitude or the height depending on the interior spaces. For example, volleyball, they have a regulation that it's like 14 meters empty, and then for combat is 16, and then this building was higher or taller, etc. So we created like this new continent, like an Africa, strange Africa, connected in that way, but you can cross it. We did a lot of models. We created like this skeleton connecting on top of the concrete stands, but keeping the south and north faces open so you can have the cross ventilation. Again, no AC systems. These are the trusses we designed with the structural engineers, different shapes, but also almost the same logic and patterns, structural patterns. You can see how it works in the cross section. So we collect here all the water. We have all the electrical systems. We have like an indirect light in these faces. But when you see it from this side, you can see the extensions here. This is a photograph during the construction process and during the games. We also proposed this permeable facade so the air can cross the building easily, but also something really nice is that the people can see the games without paying a ticket, which is why not? It's really cool. And this is one of the buildings inside. This is the gymnastics. And this is how it looks. We also wanted to connect the building less with these brick buildings and more with this hill in the middle of the valley. It wasn't our goal initially, but at the end it was nice to see that was happening. Now I'm going to show you also Medellin, but this is the challenge again of something that is private, okay? Hey, we have these investors, we have in the urban tissue of Barrio El Poblado in Medellin, we bought this land inside of a block, but crossing the block. So they bought like one of the lots in the corner and the other one crossing the block from one side to the other. So we immediately said, hey, that's the idea. You can have a permeable building, urban permeable building. You can cross the block. You can create different pathways for local people. It doesn't matter that they are not clients of the hotel, but they can have, I don't know, they can use the restaurants. They can use the, so now they have a gallery. They have 3 restaurants. They have 2 lobbies that are located at the same level. So yeah, we work with that idea. This is the urban fabric. This is the building. We are creating this new L-shaped courtyard in the center. But at the ground level, this is what is happening. So this is part of the new building, this long bar 2, and then this one, this fragment, this little, but you basically you can cross the city in that way. And then they had this idea of capsules with different sizes. So the client, they proposed like having like 17 different sizes for different units. So we had to work with different, all these, you can see it, 1, 2, 3. So all of them are basically different. This one is bigger, and then to design something super specific for all of them. And following the regulations, because we have 2 lots in the same block with different urban regulations. So part of the building is 8 stories, the other one is 5, etc. It was like a really complex situation. So this is how it looked. You cross this, you go up, you use the patio, but you can go out here or here, you can access from the corner, etc. And then just this crazy combination of rooms, corridors, etc. And the section, the typical section, this street is lower, you go up, this is the patio, and then you connect it with the rest of with the other part of the city. Drawings exploring that situation, the existing buildings, also, elevations. And we had to work with the landscape designer really, really closely because they wanted to explode this tropical component. So only native plants, local plants that in 4 years have grown like crazy. So now the building is almost invisible, which is, it's great because the building is really abstract. The client, they wanted to have this idea of like this metal structure, super resistant, that is going to last for 150 years. They proposed that it's not black, it's more like a graphite color. It's like it's almost black. And they said, okay, this is the color. There's nothing to discuss. That's the color. I don't like it completely because when you paint a building in that color, it's really difficult to create shade. The shades are not visible, so it looks flat. But actually, it is not. It's really three-dimensional. But we accepted it, and we work with that. Sometimes I like it because the building looks like a big shadow. So some of the areas that you can cross, the public space, semi-public spaces, the courtyard. One of the units, we always propose balconies, terraces, gardens, so no completely closed units. You can always open a window, a sliding door, etc. And this is the location of the building in Medellin. So you can see the courtyard and the location of this fragment connected with these existing buildings, the corner. So. Okay, and I'm finishing with this little community center for the municipality of this little town, San Vicente. We built it they opened it in 2016. This is like a rural little town. It takes 1.5 hours driving from Medellin to go there. And they had this completely irregular urban adaptation of buildings to a crazy topography, really, really mountainous and, I don't know, diverse topography. And in this case, we had to work with the community, with some representatives of the communities, and even with some of the kids. The municipality designed these forms, so they had to draw, their ideas for the building. They always draw, we don't know why exactly, but they draw this idea of having, like, again, a courtyard with a perimetral building, something similar here, and description. So we started drawing something completely connected to the topography. And again, a lot of constraints. Structurally, the soils were a disaster. It was like a fragment of a mountain that was already cut. So the structural resistance of the foundation was really, really limited because of how close the concrete piles were to the edges of the mountain. So only one story, a small building, but what the municipality wanted was to have like a little public space in a place with no space for that. So we had to work a lot. We created like this stand or open outdoor theater. This is a cold place, super windy, super rainy. So what we decided to do is to have like a space inside, and the building works as arms covering that space from the wind, from the air currents. And then you have like a public cycle. So you start here, you can walk. This is the ramp for the access. This is the lobby, and then you have the outdoor theater. You have 1, 2, 3, 4 classrooms, a lab, etc. But what you can do is to go outside here, to go up, and then you are again in this street and this sidewalk. So it's like you have like a loop. And then on top of the roof, you have the terraces to create or duplicate the public space. So, or to create the public space. Some of the details, I think it's not so relevant now, but basically we have an outdoor gym. You can go up here, take the ramp, cross the building, go up, and then to use the terraces to connect the building also with the local school or with the church that it's visible from these terraces. A really, I don't know, limited building in terms of budget, concrete structure, walls, brick walls, but with some local stones to cover the walls. And that was also a decision they did as a group. They told us, this stone, these colors, we want green, etc. So it's like, yeah, it was an agreement. This is the space for all different kind of events. The interiors of the classrooms, etc. Okay, and I just want to conclude and finish this presentation mentioning this beautiful, I'm sure you know this tangram, Chinese game. I love it, and I think that this is the best metaphor to explain what we try to do, and I'm sure some of you share the same idea. So, okay, so with a limited amount of shapes, 7 figures, right? Flat figures, flat polygons, 2 large right triangles, 1 medium right triangle, 2 small right triangles, 1 square, 1 parallelogram. You can build more than this number of figures. But what is interesting for me is not the amount of figures, but that you can, and you can create movement, no? Like shapes, you can create people dancing, animals. So that's how we understand architecture or our projects, is with a limited situation, with certain amount of permeability, and with a limited palette, you can adapt to different situations and create different agreements, avoiding imposing always your own preferences, and being more open to the problems that you are facing all these different times. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Felipe. So we have time for some questions, comments from students, the faculty, the friends.
No, it's just more like a historic limitation in terms of qualification of the workers. Because when you need to weld structurally, you need somebody certified, right? And they have to study for that. We don't, at that time, in Medellin, we only had, like, I don't know, 2, 3 people authorized and certified, etc. So it was like, okay, sometimes in the structural, in the sport facilities, we have a combination of something that is welded and something that it's bolt, etc. But in the Orchidiorama project, it was welded because it was like a company with enough, it was a small project with more time, and they found the right people for welding, and that wasn't expensive for that specific moment. Something that is crazy in a country like Colombia is like not everything is always the same. Sometimes it is more expensive, one thing, and then the other one. So now, for example, concrete is the one. Steel is really expensive. We are not producing steel right now, but we did it in the past. So everything is changing. So that's what I'm saying. You have to adapt and to understand each specific situation. I was trying to propose a tradition. So my favorite architects are these architects that work in this way, understanding the project as an agreement, not as an imposition. So if I have to select between, I don't know, I love architecture. I'm looking projects all day. I'm crazy about that. I love architecture. But my tradition is not Frank Gehry, right? It's the opposite. My tradition will be maybe Allison and Peter Smithson if I'm talking about Western traditions. But for example, native communities, local native communities in Colombia work like that. So that will be also my tradition. Yeah. I don't understand. I hate to understand architecture in different scales. I also come from a family of architects and engineers, and it's a tradition in my family. And in the past, we didn't have graphic design, industrial design, landscape design, urban design, architecture. In the past, it was just design, or you can call it architecture, you can call it design. So I don't like to be specialized, but I'm ready to work with people that it's specialized. So I can work with all kind of groups, people. I love differences, etc. But I don't want to understand my discipline like with different specializations in terms of a scale. So in a way, for me, the problems of the city are the problems of the building and the problems of the table. But again, and guys, because the professors, they have their view, and that's okay. But for you guys, I'm not saying that this is the only way. I'm saying, hey, this is my way, and this is my tradition. But there are different ways of understanding and practicing and writing, and so it's just one way, okay? I would encourage you to find your way. And then objects. So we have an eternal fight between performances and objects, right? We are always designing shapes, but we are always thinking about events, things that are happening, right? So we need like we need a position that has to be balanced. But if I have to select between these two worlds, I prefer performances, things happening. But I know 70% of the architects, they love shapes, even if they say the opposite. And I'm okay with that, but I am not like that. Yeah, I think it's not difficult. If you have a partner or a friend, a special friend, or a girlfriend, a boyfriend, whatever, it's always about listening, right? It's like, so it's not, it is not a metaphorical thing. It's like, hey, listen what they are saying, what they want, and try to see what are the limitations. But it's super arrogant to say that you are going to educate your girlfriend and your client. Yeah, it's not okay. Okay, that is not going to happen. It doesn't work in that way. You can believe it, but it's not happening. Okay, and it is your client, and you know what? He's going to pay you, because this is a profession, right? So it's like, okay, are you going to pay the person are you going to educate the person that is going to pay you? Really? I'm not sure if that is the best position that you thinking about the project. Okay, so you need to find ways, honest ways. You can be you, okay? But believe me, I'm friends with clients that honestly I will never be a friend of that kind of person in a normal condition. We can be friends because of the project for a limited period of time. We can be honest, yeah. We can be honest, we can share challenges together, etc. And then, of course, a color, you discuss it. It's not that you will be like not saying anything, no? It's like, okay, why? Always ask why. Why? It's so simple. Why do you want to use that material? Because I saw it in Instagram and everybody's using it. Okay, so now you have arguments to say the opposite because you see more things than them, right? Or because it's super cheap. Now you have the option to build arguments because you know more materials, right? When they say, I want to do it in this material, and you think that immediately, you think that's the right material, it's like, you are amazing. That's the material we need. And you can add why, because of this or that, or this or that. And then it is a process. Even if you think that you agreed something, you will see that at the end, during the construction process, they can change it. And then you have to start again. So, yeah, so it's not about education, it's about working together, being humble. I think, why not? Being humble, not arrogant. They need you. And yes, sometimes it's tricky because they know what they want. If they are hiring you to design a house, they know they need a house. The problem is they don't know what kind of house. So you can help them. You wanna have something that is traditional. Why? Or I want something that it's minimalist. Wow. I don't know. I don't like that kind of but it happens a lot. So I immediately stop using that word and try to expand it. And yes, we can design an abstract house with different volumes, but maybe what is interesting is the connection between volumes, and then you start working from something that you think that will be more relevant for them and for you. And sometimes you also have to keep some ideas for you. They will be there, but they don't need to know it. And for example, complex things, conceptual issues, disciplinary issues, forget it. I don't know. I don't think it's necessary. Or maybe for a super special client, but not for the typical clients I have in my context. I suppose here is not so different. So it is the same. So we have never worked completely in a super close relation with the community because we always have a representative in the middle. And I think that's important. Either the government or a social leader, but you need somebody with name, with face, or 2 or 3 person maximum that is going to represent the whole group. And then it's the same. You have to listen, you have to understand. When you have a group that it's a big group, they will have different visions. And then something that it's great is that when you start working with them, and with this, when I show you like this idea of the courtyard, if you remember our building, it has also this like open space in the middle, the building is in the perimeter. So you mentioned that. It's like, I'm working with your idea. You propose this perimetral building, only one story, a public space in the middle. We are adapting it to the topography so we can make it real, etc. But in a way, it is truth. You are working with them as a group, and I have never had an experience when we are imposing an idea and pushing and pushing and pushing, and that's not our way. I suppose it can be possible. Yeah. So when I was proposing this idea of tradition, I was specifically talking about our discipline, right? So no local traditions or the tradition in Brazil and the tradition in Colombia. No, I was trying to propose like that our discipline, if you see and you connect the dots, you will see the architects, the names, and I have my list and I have the dots. So people that work like this, I like that tradition. But I also enjoy the other traditions. And I try to understand what they do. So, but yes, the word tradition in the terms you are proposing, it's also absolutely relevant. Sometimes it's difficult. When you visit Brazil for 1 week to visit the lot, the client, and you have to open as much as possible your eyes and ears and see if you can understand what is happening, what is different from this culture, if you compare with my culture, because the language is different, but we know that we are the same colonization, the same economies, the same ecosystems, the jungle, the Amazon, a lot of sea, mongrel societies. So at the end you say, hey, this is the same. So honestly, Latin America is the same, with colors, right? But we are super similar. It's different here. Here is different. So just start with this difference. If you study in Colombia, you study for an undergraduate 5 years and a master's 2 years, 7, okay? And you receive immediately your license. And you can start designing whatever you want, and stamping and signing plans, etc. You know how it works here, right? So take those 2 directions and they explode in different ways.